It's a 1-0 start to Valley play for North Dakota State after rallying to beat South Dakota State.
Broad stick, rule, touchdown.
And bring the Dakota marker home to Fargo. Now, the Bison hit the road for the first time all season and turned their attention to another rival, Northern Iowa. In 2017, the Bison put the herd on Panther quarterback Eli Dunn, and a pick six from Rob Grimsley sparked a 30-14 win. What does the 2018 version of NDSU UNI have in store? We can't wait to find out. It's the top-ranked Bison against number 22 Northern Iowa, and it starts now.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Hello and welcome into the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. I am Alex Egan. She is Beth Houle. We are getting set for another top 25 matchup after the Bison dispatched South Dakota State last week in a 1 versus 3. It's now another rivalry week, which is very difficult to say. I wish we had less of these.
Rivalry week, yes. Yeah, and you know what? When I first got to Fargo, this was the rivalry, really. This is what everybody got geared up for, and that was even before Chris Kleiman had even come to Fargo. It was just two hard-nosed football teams that knew each other extremely well and had been battling for a really long time against each other. And it's still just as much fun, and I think Northern Iowa is kind of climbing those ranks once again.
And it's one of those matchups where there's a lot of crossover between a lot of these coaches on the staff. They recruit all the same players because of the
Messingham,
Messingham, Kleiman.
Yeah, all three have experience from Northern Iowa.
Yeah, they've all got the ties to Northern Iowa. Coach Farley with the Panthers has been there a very long time. Let's take a quick look at the standings as we are 1 week into Missouri Valley Football Conference play. The Bison are the lone unbeaten team overall in the conference. Missouri State pulling out a huge win last week over Illinois State. That was a shocking win, really. Northern Iowa, they beat Indiana State 10 days ago. They played on a Thursday night, so they have a little bit more rest as they get into this football game with North Dakota State.
Half bye week, if you will.
A little bit of a half. Hey, any rest that you can get in the Missouri Valley, I'm sure.
Especially with North Dakota State on the docket.
Yes, all of these teams will take it.
None of this really means much to me still yet.
Not yet.
I still think you need to pump the brake, not you personally, but you need to pump the brakes on.
Included this in the show.
No, it's worth talking about, and it's interesting that the Bison are the lone undefeated team because there have been years where multiple people were undefeated until late into the season when those top powers hit each other. A lot of these top powers are hitting each other right now, and it's really causing a shakeup within the standings. Yeah,
very early. Let's go out to the Unidome. Standing by is the third member of our broadcast crew, Ryan Gellner, out at the Unidome. Ryan, how's the weather inside there?
It is actually pretty warm inside the Unidome, and I disagree just a little bit. I think it's a huge game in the reason that the winner of this football game has a little bit of breathing room. They can have a screw up because they would own the head-to-head between these two football teams. In that regard, it's a big football game. And I'll tell you what, listening to UNI's radio stations, their pregame shows, this is their game of the year. They have declared North Dakota State as their biggest rival this week, and that's a little bit unusual because this is not North Dakota State's biggest rival, but UNI looks at this game as a big-time rivalry game, and there is something special, no doubt about it, when these two teams meet. The Bison are off to a 4-0 start. They've hit the road for the first time. UNI is 2-2, but in those 2 wins, it is 2 straight shutouts for the Panthers, and the recent games have been really good between these two football teams. The Bison in 2014 had 33 straight wins. Then they came in this building. They lost 23-3. In 2015, Darius Shepard caught that touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone to give the Bison a 31-28 win. In 2017, the Bison forced 5 turnovers, and they go on to win 30-14. But when I think about Northern Iowa and NDSU, I think back to late October 2011. North Dakota State was ranked 3rd in the nation. UNI was ranked 2nd. Late in the 3rd quarter, the Bison led 17-13 when that right there happened. Travis Beck forced the fumble. Kyle Emanuel picked it up, ran it into the end zone. The Bison won, but on that day, the Fargo Dome noise decibel level reached a new level, and that is what persuaded North Dakota State to become the Dome Field advantage, vault them into the playoff, guys. This series is something special, and it started 7 years ago this month.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. And before we leave you here, you had some late-breaking news for us that we have from out there at the Unidome concerning a Bison player. What is that for us?
Yeah, running back Ty Brooks did not make the trip. We understand he was injured sometime during the week, but Ty Brooks is not on the trip for the Bison. He will not go. Another interesting note, the Bison have dressed all 4 quarterbacks. They all made the trip, so the Bison have 4 quarterbacks on their roster for this game. But the big news, of course, is no Ty Brooks. Guys?
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. That is huge to not have Ty Brooks, and it ties into what we're about to talk about, which is one of these running backs is playing in a homecoming game, and that is Lance Dunn.
Yeah, this is a big game for Lance Dunn, and you heard Ryan talk a little bit about it there when you talk about his play in the 2 years ago at Northern Iowa and the effect that he had on that game. 23 carries in that one. Of course, he missed last year's game because of this injury at the Western Illinois game the week before, that hip injury that took him all the way until Frisco. We were at all of the speculation whether or not he would play in Frisco. He was able to make it back, and he looks great now since coming back from that injury.
He has been playing well. This was a very scary moment because I think a lot of people weren't sure if Lance was ever going to play again.
And those were serious concerns. Hip injuries are a very serious concern, and there was real probability and a chance because you don't know how that's going to heal.
And this is video of Lance Dunn this year, mainly against Cal Poly, where he had a fantastic game. All the running backs had a great game in that one, but Lance was able to get in the end zone a couple times. They haven't really done much in terms of their productivity over the last couple weeks. We'll get into that in just a little bit. But this is Lance playing at home. He's from that area where Northern Iowa is. This is one of those things that we talk about every year, is that Lance got away from the Panthers and came to North Dakota State and
they stole him. They stole him away from his hometown, his home community. He has a couple of high school teammates on this roster. He has a lot of guys he played against for a lot of years, and he has a cousin on this football team as well, dressing and lining up as a linebacker. He started a couple games this season for the Panthers. Lance telling me there's been some friendly trash talk between them, a healthy dose going on, and of course the request for tickets. This is a big deal for him, and I had the chance to talk to him about that this week, and he says this is very important to him as a football game. Here's what he said.
The fact, it's my senior year, last year to really get to play there in front of, all these fans and all my family and everything. So it's a big deal for me, and I'm looking forward to it. I know, like, a lot of people on the team, and I got family on that team, so, it's going to be a really intense game. That just makes me want to play even harder.
Now, also in there, he said, I know so many people there. Those stands, there's going to be a lot of people rooting for me, but there's going to be a lot of people rooting against me as well. And then he said that motivates him just as much.
That's awesome to see. So we wanted to take a look at the running backs as a whole. And we obviously, this was before we knew that Ty Brooks will not be playing again. Ty Brooks not on the trip to Northern Iowa because of an injury, is what we're told that he suffered sometime in the week. So here's what the running backs look like. And they've been pretty balanced in how they've been able to distribute the football in terms of rushing the football. Now, this doesn't include any receiving stuff, but Bruce Anderson had that huge game against Cal Poly, 185 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's gotten the yards per carry. When you have anything above 4, you have to be happy as a offensive coordinator. But I will say this, I don't think the running backs have done enough at this point.
And I think you need to calm down. I think that they've been playing teams they don't really know. It's been the non-conference schedule. I don't put a whole lot of stock in the non-conference for what that means for the football team moving forward. Those are win some games, stay healthy, get into conference play. Now you're going to start to see that classic Bison football. They're trying not to show too many things. We've talked about that to ad nauseum, about Easton Stick not wanting to show too much and show the whole, hand. I think it's the same thing with the running backs. I think people know what to expect from them, but you also don't want to exhaust these guys because they have a really long season ahead of them inside this Missouri Valley Football Conference.
That they do. And while the running back and the running game has been very good, you can throw Easton Stick into that. You throw, obviously, Lance and Bruce into that. No Ty Brooks today, so we'll probably see a little bit more Damaris Purifoy. And we're told that Sabian Clark made this trip as well, the true freshman, also from Iowa. No doubt. So he actually told us that he's bonded with Lance Dunn over their Iowa roots. So maybe we'll see some Sabian Clark. Who knows what the Bison rushing attack will be, but I just have this feeling that Lance is. You're going to see a ton
Lance
of 10.
told me he wants to show out.
You're going to see a ton of 10 getting the football.
He wants it, and he's got Messingham there calling the plays. Another Iowa guy. He knows what this means to a kid like Lance, and you have to ride the hot hand. And if you've got that emotion, that passion running back there, play up. Play to it.
Play to it. We still have plenty to come here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. We'll take a look at Northern Iowa. We'll hear from their play-by-play man. Plus, some more fun. How about this? A yard in South Fargo. This is Braylon, Ashley, and Peyton decorating their yard and showing some Bison pride as well as some dance moves.
Yeah, the Fortnite.
More to come here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. There they are, the Bison playing their first road game of the season. This is the latest first road game for NDSU since 1961.
Oh, wow.
Remember that game? It was against Morningside. They played Morningside October 7th. So far, North Dakota State and Campbell are the only ones to play. What's up?
No, I don't remember that game.
You don't remember
from
the 1961 game against Morningside?
No,
Wow.
no, I don't. I'm an 88 baby.
Yeah, well, I don't remember it either. So NDSU playing on the road for the first time all season.
You don't ask a lady her weight or her age.
I didn't ask you your age. I just asked if you remembered the game is all.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Let's get this show back on the rails if we can. Let's go back out to the Unidome. Ryan Gellner standing by with the voice of the Panthers. Ryan?
Yeah, thank you guys. Longtime play-by-play voice here at Northern Iowa. It's Gary Ryman. Gary, your defense and your team comes in with a little bit of confidence.
Really does. And, you know, we had a couple of sluggish first two games, but the defensive improvement has been huge here in our last two wins. When you shut two teams out back-to-back, that's hard to do. Now, your opponent, your quality of opponent had a little something maybe to do with that, but we feel like the defense is hugely improved, and we're going to get severely tested today. And I think today's the day we find out how much we've really improved since that loss at Montana and the loss to the Hawkeyes.
Inside this building, you are a different team, and the Bison are about to find that out today.
Yeah, the winning percentage here is incredible. It's Coach Farley will tell you he feels this dome is worth 7 points because of the fan. I got to believe you guys feel the same way about the Fargo Dome, but you know, you still got to play the game. We're going to have to play 4 great quarters of football, and you know, we need our offense to be productive today. We really do. If we can't move the football, if our defense has to be on the field too long, it could be a long day.
The running backs, Marcus Weimiller and Trevor Allen, if we hear those names a lot today, I would assume things are going pretty good for UNI.
No doubt. We have to establish the running game. If North Dakota State's defense can just pin their ears back and come after Eli, they're going to do to us what they did the last couple of years. Sacks, fumbles, interceptions. So really key to establish a running game today with those two. And Eli's got to show us a little escapability too. He's not a dual threat quarterback, but I think Eli is more mobile than maybe some people give him credit for. I think you may see a little something out of him today on some read option stuff. We'll run the Panther Wildcat formation, some with Weimiller, but got to establish a running game. If we can't, again, could be a long day.
It should be a fun day as well. Gary, thank you for the time. We appreciate the hospitality.
Yep, should be a great game. Good luck to you guys the rest of the way.
Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, guys. They touched on Trevor Allen and Marcus Weimiller. Those two are the running backs of choice for this Panther offense. Allen has 312 yards. He's averaging just over 5 yards a carry so far this season. He's got 3 touchdowns. Weimiller has 208 yards and a couple touchdowns. He's averaging just over 3.5 yards per carry. So those are two guys that obviously both of these teams want to run the football. They want to establish the run. Those two guys, like you heard Ryan say there.
That's why it's a rivalry. It's that same style of football. They're trying to do the same thing against each other. They certainly have formidable running backs. I think what really stood out about what Gary had to say there was about this defense, and I think it's easy to forget. 2 back-to-back shutouts. I don't care who you are and who you're playing. That's impressive, and that's something to be said. And I think this Bison offense, who has been challenged the last couple of weeks, they themselves challenged themselves after that North Alabama game. I'm really interested to see what they're able to bring in this one against a defense that, okay, sure, they've had success, and whatever that means, they have confidence. And confidence is incredibly dangerous in your opponent.
Yeah, those 2 shutouts coming 5 days apart, too. So there wasn't a lot of time for the defense to rest and get ready for an Indiana State team. So you get a shutout in your final non-conference game and a shutout against Indiana State on the road no less.
And just to stay focused that long and have your whole roster, because they got those numbers up. They you know they put up a bunch of points on Indiana State. So to have some guys coming in relief, to have those numbers rotating in, and to still be able to maintain that shutout, it's an impressive feat, and it's worth recognizing.
And to that point, too, their first game against Montana, they were down 26-0 at the half and then scored 23 points to make that a 26-23 game. So that defense pitched a shutout in the second half. That's money time. That's money time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's 8, 9, 10.
Yeah,
10 quarters of shutout football. That's impressive.
Against decent opponents as well. We're going to step aside. When we come back, we'll hear from the doc.
I feel like I had to count that.
Well done. We'll get you updated on who's in and who's out, according to our guys at the Dome. Ty Brooks not playing today, didn't make the trip. We'll have more for you on that. Plus, we'll take a look at the quarterbacks in today's game. That's still to come here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Football?
I can talk? Yeah. Okay. Holding. Holding.
Holden?
Close.
Holder?
Holding. All right. Student athlete.
Huh?
Student athlete.
Something athlete.
Close. Interception.
Interception.
There we go. There we go. All right. This one's hard. Backwards lateral.
Yeah, come again.
All right. Sack.
Who?
Sack. Lineman.
Lineman.
There we go.
Huh?
Student athlete. It was forced fumble.
Okay.
Holding.
Sure.
Student athlete. You almost got that one. Interception.
Yep.
Backwards lateral. Sack. I don't know how you didn't get that one. Sack and then lineman.
I mean,
we should have switched jobs, I think.
Nice job, guys.
I had the easy job.
Specialists.
Hey, kickers are people too. They may not be very good at the Whisper Challenge, but they're people too.
It was cute.
That was fun. We have more of those.
Once they figured out they could talk.
Once Jake figured out, I guess we didn't go over the rules so much with Jake about that.
We were rolling through them.
Yeah, we were rolling through quickly, but Cam was wearing headphones. He couldn't hear you anyway, so you could talk out loud. That's all right. That was fun. It was good stuff. Let's go back out to the Uni Dome and catch up with Ryan Gellner and our Sanford Sports Medicine and Orthopedics Injury Report.
Bruce Pyatt is here, and Doc, today we're going to talk a little bit about shoulders, in particular the AC joint of the shoulder, which when you watch football games, almost never a game goes by where you don't see somebody grabbing that shoulder coming off in pain.
Yeah, it's a really common injury in all the contact sports. So football, hockey, we see it a lot. Generally what's happened is that there's been a fall where they've landed directly on the shoulder. And in football, the other part about it is that they not only land with their own force of their body, but they're also often landing with a 300-pound lineman on top of them at the same time. And that force goes somewhere. In young kids, it often goes up into the collarbone, and you get a clavicle fracture or a collarbone fracture. Whereas in the adults, once your growth plates and everything are closed, a lot more times that event really is isolated to the AC joint. And the AC joint is where your collarbone hooks up to your shoulder blade. It's called the acromial clavicular joint, or AC joint.
When a player sustains that injury, we hear times the shoulder coming out. Is that this type of an injury?
Truly, a shoulder dislocating is a different part of the shoulder. This is the small joint of the shoulder, and when you hear of people separating their shoulder, this is the joint that's been injured. When you hear of them dislocating or popping out, it's usually the glenohumeral joint, where the humerus or the ball of the joint dislocates from the shoulder blade. So that's a whole different ball game with that.
Either way, you're in pain.
Yeah, both of them can be very painful. The one thing with the true shoulder dislocations, when we put those back in place, their pain usually goes away. Whereas with these AC injuries, that will linger on for days and weeks, often with pain. And every time they get it hit again, it goes right back to the same type of pain for them often.
Not a fun injury to have, the AC joint on the shoulder. Doc, we thank you for your time and appreciate it. We'll see you again next week.
Sounds good.
Beth, Alex, back to you.
All right, thank you, guys. The Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Injury Report. We'll take a look at the guys that we had. And then, of course, we had that late-breaking news right before we went on the air that Ty Brooks is not playing today, did not make the trip. Running back suffered an injury, we're told, sometime this week. So he is not available for the Bison today. Seth Wilson still questionable. Eric Bachmeier with a hand.
And again, we talked all fall camp and really through spring ball about how many running backs they were going to have and how valuable that depth was and how lucky they were to have those. How were they possibly going to use all of these guys? Well, it's a good thing that they have the numbers, because you just never know. That position takes such a beating, especially the way the Bison run the football. Yeah, and we saw that last year, too, with the Bison down to basically 2 healthy running backs at the end of the season, having to pull Seth Wilson's redshirt 8 games into the season. You definitely didn't want to do that, but that's that position, and that's where they had to go. So running back depth was tested last year, and it looks like it's getting tested again this year. One of the places that we hope that you don't have to see the depth. Don't even say it. We're going to look at the quarterbacks this week. Don't even. Oh, knock on all the, knocking on wood. Easton Stick playing well for the Bison there. You see his numbers on the season. 5 touchdowns, the 1 interception last week against South Dakota State. Doing well in the rushing game as well. He's got those 5 rushing touchdowns. And, you know, we talked to Coach Kleiman about Easton and what he brings to this team. And yeah, he was 9 for 20 last week against South Dakota State, but he made so many big, crucial plays with his arm and with his feet, notably as well. Yeah, he looked great. I cannot say it enough that I think Easton Stick is the dude. I mean, not that it's in question whether or not he's going to be your starting quarterback, but I think he's the best quarterback in FCS football right now. I really do. And I think he continues to show it week in and week out, and whether or not the numbers on the stat sheet are exactly what you want to see and whether or not that's going to win you the award at the end of the year, I don't think that matters, because I think he has a future ahead of him, and I think he is showing just how talented he is and just how good he is and really has been now that they're kind of relinquishing some of that. It's not a quarterback stat per se, but Easton Stick wins. And he wins football games, and that's the most important stat of them all. It's really important. It worked out for Carson. He did okay. What's he doing? He won some football games. Carson. Yeah, he's got some jewelry
Wentz,
too.
That's his name. Let's take a look at the Northern Iowa quarterback. The Bison familiar with this guy, Eli Dunn. They have had some success against this Eli Dunn in years past, and he's playing very well too. Not exactly a mobile quarterback like Easton Stick is. Does negative 15 rushing yards. Those are because of a lot of sacks, but he will sling the football when he's in the pocket. But they're kind of trying to get him to move a little bit more, which is very weird to me, just because, and especially against the Bison. I think that sounds like a recipe for disaster. I mean, we've got highlights upon highlights upon highlights of the Bison just destroying Eli Dunn. They got after him last year. They got after him. And the year before that, I mean, they get in his head, and that's what I'm really interested to see with Eli. If he can truly put all of his past against NDSU behind him, because there is a lot of history with these two programs and with Eli and the Bison, especially when it comes to the turnovers. And that's what you got a chance to talk to Rob Grimsley this week. Rob, not Robbie Grimsley. We got a chance to talk to him today, and he mentioned about the past and what that means for this year's matchup.
When you have guys that have played a lot of ball, they're able to, run some different formations, run some different plays, out of different formations. So, I mean, we're interested to see what they're going to do, but from what they've shown on film, it's stuff that we've seen, it's stuff that we're able to defend. I'm not sure if they're going to come out with something different against us, but we'll be ready.
And that's the thing. For all of the history that Eli Dunn might have with the Bison, he has a lot of guys around him that have a lot of history with the Bison as well. And this UNI offense has a lot of leadership and a lot of guys with a lot of experience, especially against the Bison. And what we heard from Gary Ryman, the voice of the Panthers, when he talked with Ryan earlier in the show, they would like to get Eli to be a little bit more mobile and create a little bit more of a threat to not just be that pocket passer, but to get him out of the pocket and move him around and make the Bison stay honest on defense with him. Do it. Also, Greg Menard's playing today. So. I just can't wait to see it. I mean, it sounds like not the smartest idea. They sacked Eli Dunn 5 or 6 times. So pardon me for not knowing that number right away, but 5 or 6 times last year, and no Greg Menard last year. So bring it. Good luck to the Panther offensive line. I can't wait to see how it shakes out. I think this Bison defense, they don't need any help getting hyped up for this game. Not to mention, oh yeah, the D coordinator and the linebackers coach is Matt Entz. He's from Iowa. He coached at Northern Iowa. he's got all of that excitement heading into this one as well. Those guys want to make their coach proud and leave a lasting impression. They want to do him right.
Absolutely. We're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to go out to our crew out at the Uni Dome. Ryan Gellner, Brian Shawn, and Lee Timmerman will be standing by. That's still to come here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
It is number 22, Northern Iowa, and it is number 1, North Dakota State, inside the Unidome in Cedar Falls, Iowa. This is Brian Shawn. He is Lee Timmerman. My name is Ryan Gellner, and we are field level here inside the Unidome. And Brian, these two teams have battled it out. It is very much another rivalry game. At least it is on the UNI side.
You know, it really is, and I think it goes back to when these two teams started playing, when NDSU joined the Gateway at that time, turned in the Missouri Valley. This was really the team that North Dakota State knew it had to beat if it wanted to get to the top of the pile, and they did. And they've done it a lot here in the last 8 years, winning 7 of the last 8 meetings. But the one time NDSU did lose in 2014, snapped a 33-game winning streak. The Bison currently have the FCS longest winning streak right now at 10.
Yeah, they sure do. Lee, UNI has had an up and down season, but they're coming off 2 pretty impressive defensive shutouts.
Well, they shut out their opponents. I don't know if I'll use the term impressive just because of the caliber of those opponents. Hampton is not good. Indiana State, in terms of the conference, I think is pretty terrible. We saw that last week. Yes, they shut them out, but the defense, defensive backs, that's been the issue for this UNI team. So if you can sustain the rush, help out a little bit on the blitz, I think Easton Stick will have some time to find some things downfield. That is the weak point of the Panthers defense.
Offensively for UNI, some of the same names. Eli Dunn, Marcus Weimiller, Trevor Allen has been added to the mix at running back. They do what they do. The Bison will try to get after the quarterback. UNI will try to establish the run and see if they can throw it around a little bit.
I think so. And priority 1 for UNI has to be to establish some sort of ground game today, because when UNI hasn't been able to do that, their quarterback has got hit a lot. And Eli Dunn is not a mobile guy. The strength of UNI's offensive line is certainly on the left side with Jackson Scott Brown, Cal Twait. That's where they're better. A little bit weaker on the right side, and they may be even a little bit weaker today because Nick Ellis, one of their starters, may not play due to an ankle injury.
Let's get to our Dakota Magic Casino keys to the football game. And they are starting with number 1, avoid the letdown. The Bison had a big game last week against South Dakota State. They come away with the win. But really, Lee, it depends now upon the seniors. The Bison have 13 senior starters, and their preparation Monday through Friday was really good.
And that's why I don't think you get the letdown. There's some good senior leadership, as you mentioned. I know Beth and Alex and you have talked about the rivalry factor. That's another reason you don't have a letdown. You usually have a letdown when you play somebody you think is maybe a lesser opponent after you played a rival, not when you get to play UNI right after you played SDSU.
It's a little bit of flip the script for North Dakota State. Our number 2 Dakota Magic Casino key to the game is be poised to the noise. 9 of 11 games for the Bison come in a dome. Most of those are home games, Brian. This is not, and this building can echo when it gets loud. The question is, will it be loud?
Well, I think it has the potential to be loud, and I think we heard last night that there are only a few hundred seats left. I think UNI will come out for this game. They realize who's playing here today and the importance of this game for this program. And NDSU prepared for it more this week than they have in previous weeks. They pumped in the noise earlier in the week in the Fargo Dome, practiced in there almost exclusively throughout the week. The defense has actually made a point as well, Ryan, of making sure they're down with their non-speaking nonverbal. Yep. You know what I'm talking about? A lot of their signals defensively really worked a lot more on that because that was an issue last week against the Jackrabbits.
Yeah, that was a problem inside the Fargo Dome. Now that they're in a hostile environment, we'll see if the defense has that cleaned up. Our final Dakota Magic Casino key to the football game is being more efficient early, and we're talking about the offense. Easton Stick just 9 of 20, 182 yards. The Bison were only 50% on third downs last week. But we're talking before third down. First and second down, the Bison need to shore that up.
Yeah, it's certainly a point of emphasis, and it comes off the hand of Easton Stick. We did see last week, though, against the Jacks that a lot of the passes that he was attempting were verticals. They were downfield, trying to hit big plays. The percentage drops the farther you throw it down the field. But, yeah, a little bit more. Stick would love to be around that 60%. He's not quite there yet. And Bison, third downs, great in the second half. If their offense can stay on the field, I think this dome and this building and this atmosphere quiets down quite a bit today.
It's so funny. We're still early in the conference season. But when you look at the top echelon of teams, the Bison have already won the head-to-head with South Dakota State. A win here for North Dakota State really sets them up well, especially when you look at controlling your own destiny.
Yeah, I think it does. We'd have to say, probably looking at the schedule earlier in the year before we even started playing games, that their schedule was front-loaded for NDSU in terms of South Dakota State, back-to-back road games. I think those were the challenges that NDSU knew it was going to have. But now all of a sudden you look in November, Missouri State's on the schedule. The Bears are ranked for the first time in like 5 years. So we'll see how things play out over the next month, but we all know on the road they're going to be tough.
Yeah, and let's hit on that, Lee, real quickly. The balance of this league seems to have gone upwards. Maybe it's not, maybe it is the top 1 or 2 teams, but right now it seems like there's a whole pack chasing North Dakota State.
It will always figure out where it is, but we're not quite there yet. Some surprises. Brian mentioned Missouri State, certainly a surprise, but somewhere along the line, there's going to be some wins that you thought would happen and some losses that surprised you. We had a couple of those already.
We are about 30 minutes away from North Dakota State and UNI here at the Unidome. When we come back, the head coach, Chris Kleiman, gives his final thoughts, as do our guys from the Unidome. Game day between North Dakota State and the University of Northern Iowa. Hi, welcome back inside the Unidome in Cedar Falls, Iowa. North Dakota State has a test on their hands because today's football game is a rivalry game for UNI. They point to North Dakota State as the team they want to get and the team they want to beat. UNI owned this division for years before North Dakota State ever got into the division, and now North Dakota State has flipped the tables and they have become the team to beat. They get everybody's biggest punch week after week. It will not change today against Northern Iowa. Let's open up our Herdline News and tell you what's affecting North Dakota State football. We can tell you, like we told you off the top, Ty Brooks did not make the trip for North Dakota State. He is not with the team today due to an ankle injury. The Bison will dress just 4 running backs. The North Dakota State punter Garrett Wagner was named the Missouri Valley Conference Special Teams Player of the Week after having a day last week against South Dakota State. The Bison sophomore averaged 47.5 yards a punt with 3 inside the 20-yard line. Wagner ranked 6th in the FCS with a league best 45 yards a punt. Special teams will be a big factor for North Dakota State today. They have been all season. Offense, defense, and special teams. I had a chance to talk to the Bison head coach about the keys to today's football game. Ladies and gentlemen, the first road game of the year, so everything is a little bit different today.
Yeah, it really is, but you hope with the amount of veterans we have that they settle in pretty quickly. We know we're going to be in a tough environment, and we just told the guys we have to have great poise, not panic, handle the adversity, and make it a 4-quarter game.
Let's talk about that environment. For the first time this year, you'll go against noise as opposed to with noise.
Yeah, and we practiced it all week, and Easton's done it in the past, and had some good meetings with our receivers and backs and tight ends to get them on the same page, and it'll be a factor, but as we've seen even in some of our games that are at home, people have a better mechanism to handle that stuff now.
UNI has pitched 2 defensive shutouts in a row. They come in with confidence. Your offense will have to come to play today.
Absolutely. They're great in run defense, and they've got a dynamite front 7 that we have to find a way to dent. We have to be able to run the football inside, outside, wherever it may be. We have to find ways to run the football.
And then defensively, Bison football, you want to get after the quarterback.
Yeah, we really do. We need to create some turnovers, try to get some short fields for our offense, maybe get a strip here or there, but we cannot give it up an explosive play. We have to make those guys go 80 yards in 10 plays to score.
Chris, good luck this afternoon.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Guys, back to you. We are 25 minutes away from kickoff here inside the Unidome. When we come back, it is back to our Fargo studios as it's North Dakota State and Northern Iowa yet to come.
You're taking a look outside the Unidome, and here in just a second you're going to see the new Bison football hauler. That is Sear Trucking LLC. If that name sounds familiar to you, it's because it is Jedry Sear, former Bison fullback. He is now hauling equipment for the Bison. And Beth, you got a chance to talk to Jedry this week, and we'll hear that story coming up tomorrow on the Bison Football Show.
Yeah, that's right. Caught wind that Jedry had this opportunity to start driving and taking the semi down on the road trips for Bison football. This is a job that's been done by another company since they started hauling a semi with them back in the Gene Taylor days. But Jedry, everybody kind of knows now. ESPN did a big feature on him when they were here for Sports Center. Jedry has been driving since the moment he was able to, since he was able to get that license even during the football seasons. And it started as Sear Trucking, and now a couple of generations later, it's Sear LLC, and he drives that notorious green and yellow truck, a cab around the upper Midwest, and now he has this opportunity, and a really cool story. It means so much to him, which makes it that much more special. Guy was a team player through and through, walk-on, red-shirted, went out there and did thankless blocking throughout his career, had 2 receptions, 1 for a touchdown in his career. You're going to get to see that touchdown again tomorrow, when we run this on the Coaches Show.
What I enjoy is that how many people can say that they caught a their like 1 touchdown pass was from Carson Wentz in college. Like that's so awesome. I mean, there's plenty of Bison people that can say that, but Jedry's here. Great guy, and a very cool story. Can't wait to see it tomorrow on the Bison Football Show with Chris Kleiman. That starts at 10:30 tomorrow morning. Let's get into today's game and our Bobcat heavy lifting report, and we went with the hometown kid, Lance Dunn.
You just had to. There's plenty of guys that need to have a big game in this one, but I think Lance Dunn, he needs it for himself. He needs it because the Bison need to get that running game going so that Alex Egan will stop harping on them. I know. But they need to. The team needs to start getting those gears grinding. They need to start to develop it and get those things flowing for this season. And I think it starts with Lance Dunn this week.
The Waterloo, Iowa native, as we touched on at the beginning of the show, he missed that UNI game last year because of the injury that he suffered the week prior. And that last point there that I think is very important is take the load off Easton. Easton Stick has had to run the football a fair amount over the last couple weeks, and you want to avoid the hits that Easton is going to take when he's running the football. Now, Easton has done a good job of getting out of bounds and avoiding contact.
You just don't want him to get
But you don't want the ability for somebody to lay a hit on Easton's stick and completely change how the Bison offense would work.
Now, 2 years ago, when Lance Dunn had his 23 carries against Northern Iowa at the Uni Dome, they had a lot of success with him to the perimeter, which is where you see a lot more of Lance Dunn's action. I'm interested to see how UNI answers that, because they guarantee they watch that film. I literally found all 23 of his carries, doing a story on him this week about his return home. They all looked good, and he annihilated them down the side. And so I'm interested to see how they account for that and how the Bison counter that, because again, these teams know each other so well, and they are well aware of what each one is bringing to the table.
Absolutely. Lance Dunn, our Bobcat heavy lifting report player. Let's get into the Bison defense. Code Green has been playing phenomenally over the last couple weeks. They were able to shut down that South Dakota State offense that put up 90 some odd points the week prior, or 2 weeks prior. So Code Green has been doing a good job, and what they've been doing is turning defense into immediate offense. We've seen a couple pick sixes from Jabril Cox against North Alabama and against Delaware. You know, he took a week off last week, so, no pick six for Jabril Cox last week, but maybe he'll get the streak started again.
You think SDSU was well aware where Jabril Cox was at all times on the football field? But I think you're absolutely right. It's so important to get turnovers already in a football game, but to be able to turn that into points is that much more valuable. And the Bison even did that last week. Well, it wasn't in form of a pick six. That very next drive, they were able to turn some points out of it, and that's how you win football games.
And that's hopefully
the next tight ones, especially.
Right. That's hopefully the next one that we're going to see here. If I would have edited this video better, we were going to see the Jalen Allison pick from last week. This is it, picking off Taryn Christian, sliding over.
Change the direction of that football game.
Yeah, absolutely, because the Jacks were looking at going up 2 scores at that point. Even if you held them to a field goal there, it would have been 10-0. But Allison gets that pick, returns it out to the 30-yard line, and the Bison take it in and score points. So.
Well, and, it sounds really obvious. How important is turnovers in a football game? I didn't really want to ask Chris that this week at the press conference, because it sounds so obvious. As you're forming that question in your head, how important are turnovers in a football game? it sounds silly to ask because it's obvious. They're crucial. They're really important. I did ask Rob Grimsley about it a little bit because as a guy on defense, and especially coming off of that SDSU game, that turned it. And Rob had one last year against UNI that turned the tide of the football game. So I did get the chance to ask Rob, and here's what he had to say about how important turnovers are in a football game.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, if you look even at our game last year, I mean, we were down 7-0, and then I got a pick six, and then changed everything around, and then we started changing everything, and then we ended up, you know, kind of being able to roll them in the second half there a little bit. So, I mean, it just changes the whole entire aspect of the game and changes the crowd got into it last year. Obviously, we'll be at their place, but it just changes everything. Once you're able to get some turnovers, you're able to get some stops.
So Grimsley there talking about how the momentum can change in an instant. We saw it last week. We saw it last year in this game against Northern Iowa, and how valuable these points coming off of turnovers, how valuable turnovers are, but then the ability to cash them in as well. And we can show you how the Bison have been doing so far this season. So far, NDSU has collected 8 turnovers, and they've scored 42 points off of it, if we could take a look at that graphic. And the Bison have only given up 10 points off of turnovers.
Well, and just as valuable in that, you know, we've made a big deal about this is the first road trip that the Bison are going on this season. And as great as the Fargo Dome is to play in, and as much as everybody enjoys it, Rob telling me this week that they're excited to be on the road. Not that they don't love the Fargo Dome. They love it, but it's going to be a little bit more quiet for them when the Bison defense is out there. And that lends to being able to make some big plays, communicate, cause some turnovers, wreak some havoc on this UNI offense, and take the crowd out of the game.
Oh, and I've never done it. I've never been a part of it. I played some sports growing up, but to silence a crowd, there has got to be no better feeling than to silence a rowdy crowd.
Especially somewhere like the Unidome, where there are going to be a lot of Bison fans. Bison fans travel extremely well to Northern Iowa, and so you're going to have that crowd, and so to feel that change in the dynamic is a really cool feeling. I've been at the Unidome when they've done it. It's really cool to see, and the Bison defense can't wait to do that, hopefully pretty early in this one.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to that. There's 6 minutes and 45 seconds left on our Coors Light countdown clock before we send you back out to the Unidome for game action.
There they are.
We will take a timeout here. When we come back, we'll put our final thoughts in on this one before game action. That's still to come here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
3 minutes and 50 seconds on our Coors Light countdown clock before we send you out to the Unidome for #1 North Dakota State and #22 Northern Iowa. Before we send you out there for football, let's send you out there to get the final thoughts of our guys that will be on the call, Brian Schonley Timmerman, and we'll start with Ryan Gellner.
Real smooth.
For me, it's the Eli Dunn factor, the quarterback for UNI. The last couple of years, North Dakota State has been able to get to him, hit him, and put him on his back. UNI says they've got plans to move Eli Dunn around in the pocket to avoid him from getting hit. I want to see if the Panthers can do that.
All right, I think my final thoughts going into this contest is to see how Easton Stick performs today. The Bison, a lot of explosive plays last week in the passing game, averaging 20 yards per catch. I think Easton and I think Cordy Messingham would like the Bison to be a little more efficient in the passing game today. We'll see if they go down the field or try to check things down a little bit more.
Well, my final thoughts, Brian, is an interesting stat I think Coach Entz said from a defensive perspective. He said if you get the other team to change the possession 10 times, you win 86% of those times. Remember last week, South Dakota State, 3 out of 12. From third downs, 0 of 1. On fourth down, that's 10 changes of possession. Bison win. They'll try to do it again today.
All right, thank you very much, guys. I'm looking through my papers here to see if I have the magic to what's going to happen today. I don't. As it turns out, in all these papers, I don't know what's going to happen.
Shocking.
I do know that the Bison are going to play well. They are ready. Despite the fact that Northern Iowa has had a little bit of extra time off to prepare for this one, and despite the fact that the Bison are going to get the best effort from Northern Iowa, I still think that this Bison defense is playing at way too high of a level to really have this Northern Iowa offense get going.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this one shakes out, just because as we heard the guys talking about out at the Unidome already today, this is once again the game of the year for the Bison opponent. And that's something that they see time and time again, especially as they get into the Missouri Valley. But to have SDSU and then UNI back to back, that is a hard grind no matter how good you are at football. So to be able to stay focused, stay healthy, stay conditioned for that. I mean, this is a tough stretch for the Bison. I'm really excited to see how they respond to it, and I think this is going to tell you exactly how good this football team is and how far they can and will go this season.
I think you can learn a lot about a team that goes out on the road, and this is the first time that we're seeing North Dakota State on the road this year. So you can learn a lot about a football team when they don't have that crowd energy with them.
And I am so excited to see them be able to do that on the road, to be able to create that atmosphere, because I think that's one of the things that the Bison do so well, is they're able to kind of create their own energy. They're so supportive on both sides of the ball that I'm really excited to see what they're able to do out there.
We have less than a minute on our Coors Light countdown clock. One of the things that I wanted to touch on, you mentioned it, the stretch that the Bison are in. They played South Dakota State last week. They've got Northern Iowa this week, and then the week after, next week, is going to be Western Illinois in Macomb, and that is a difficult place to play. It's difficult to get to. It's a night game, so you got to wait.
Yes.
You
have to hike from the locker room to the field.
Yes, the crowd will be thin. So this game is very important. Obviously, you look ahead, that game is going to be a challenge.
And that's why I said you can't get all worked up about those standings right now, because I think these next couple of weeks, especially as the Bison play some of these teams, you're going to see that kind of straighten out a little bit more. Not that this isn't a big game. I'm saying the standings don't mean much right now.
It's still very fluid. Is that Fortnite move? I don't know.
No, I can't do that. No,
we will send you out to the Unidome. It's number 1, North Dakota State, number 22, Northern Iowa. The game starts now.